How do you do, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and people and teachers and others? I'm Julius Sumner Miller, and physics is my business, and our business concerns itself with
the science of the tap. Ooh. Ooh. Hello. My name is Quinlan. And this is Melbourne Musos Live. Hey, I missed one. That's better. Hey, I thought I'd talk about a couple of things about grooves and sounds on sounds. The last couple of weeks I've been doing things like beat backwards, splitting rudiments and things like that. And what I'd also like to talk about tonight is the science of the tap. Ooh. And also splitting rudiments a little bit more, and shades of a snare drum. I say snare, mate, snare. Let's get into it. Okay, so what I did then was just a groove, right? I'll just take it back to the most basic of rock beats. And I've got triggers on. What are they again? African kit. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Easy peasy. Now, rim shot, but not for a rim shot's sake, because it's got a different timbre. Spelt T-I-M-B-R-E. I'm sure it's a lot of people go timbre, but the timbre of the snare drum, or any drum for that matter. And what starts to happen is you start to use your sounds, and it could just be a little flick. I've often been asked about it. I call it my little 6-inch punch. It's kind of a boxer term, but it's when you're doing a little flick. And it's a funny thing, because when you're playing, when I have broken sticks, I was in a band about 6 years ago, and they just wanted me to do rim shots, and I kept breaking the sticks there rather than on the tips or anything like that, because of just the angle, right? Now, I could essentially just play very lightly and normally. Little ghost notes. Now, what we can start to do is start to talk about, this is revision, soft, medium and loud. You could almost talk about playing softly, that kind of biz. Put in an accent, just a normal accent. Then a rim shot. So on, you've got 3 sounds basically, and then you nuance it, okay? If you're thinking about volumes 1 to 10, I've often talked about this, you could think like 3, 5 and 7. Now what starts to happen then is you can put in little ghost notes on this. Now when you're playing, say, classical snare drum or anything like that, and you're playing very lightly, like in Ravel's Bolero, nya 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 nya. Ooh, ooh, 3 nya nya nya. Pardon me. Well, if you're not going to do it, I suppose I better. Boom, tissues. So what goes on is that you might be playing very lightly, but they're not ghost notes if it's not a funky beat. If it's a funky beat, then the term ghost notes come in like this. Now, when you're starting to do that, you can start to double up with things like the bass drum. So if we've got things like... See, I'm just starting to mix it up a little bit. Now, when you're starting to do mixing it up, you start to get into the science of the tap. So what happens is there's 3 main taps. And what you have is a single tap, you have a double tap, which is the tap and the rebound, okay? And then you have a press. Sleazy. So when you're doing, say, a press, you'll hear all of that in any kind of rudimental drumming. There you go. It's wonderful. You could be there all day. May as well put a lab coat on. The science of the tap. And what happens? So when you're doing, say, things like... you can start to press. I first heard this in a kind of a funky context way back when with the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Not with Billy Cobham, with Narada Michael Walden, with Visions of the Emerald Beyond. And you'd hear this kind of... Now, I'm sure that's been done before that album in the early 70s, but that was the first time I heard it. He's pressing. He's doing a basic rock beat or a funky beat, let's say, but he's pressing the snare drum. And you hold it until the next... Hey, there you go. How long? How long can you hold it for? Press rolls, before I move on to doubles and other things, press rolls are sometimes, they work in reverse. Essentially, if you're trying, can I have a drum roll please for the bride and groom walking down the stairs? That's called a scratch roll, and the general term for that is shithouse. And what happens though is that when you're playing a press roll, it works in reverse. A good press roll is to get a continuous roll with as few strokes as possible. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... There you go. And then when you're playing press rolls in march or in jazz or whatever genre you're doing it in, you work with the groupings. If you're doing triplets, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a press. You wouldn't want to go 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a... That's a bit silly. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2. No, do it. So that's a press, you see. Now when you're doing doubles, where there's 2 gears, this is very basic, funnily enough, but it's going to go a little bit tricky very quickly. When you're doing a double stroke roll, when you're first starting, they're 2 separate single taps. Right, right, left, left. Nothing wrong with that. Right, left, left. But as you build it up, the bounce starts to come in. You get the tap and the rebound. And then you're off. Now, here's my beat. This seems to be the beat of the night. Now I'm doing the same thing, and what I'm going to do is take the snare drum and I'm going to give it sections. Now, when you're dealing with a snare drum, you'll often see and hear, especially in classical snare drum, you'll hear a lot of people playing right off to the side. Bolero again. Where's Bo Derek when you need him? Remember that film with Dudley Moore? You see? Bring it into the middle. Whoa. So how about right hand to the edge of the snare. I had on the offbeat, oh, I had on the offbeat. Now you're starting to get levels. Now you could be doing this all in one song. You could start off like going older than Kosciuszko, going back to Alice Springs. Ah, Rob Hirst, mwah. And Kosciuszko. Red Sails in the Sunset. What an album that is. Oh, there you go. Now what we're talking about here is shades of the snare drum, you see. Then with that, you can start to get your little right, left, lefts in. Much underrated rudiment. Everyone does it. There you go. So look at what I've got here. I've got rim shots. I've got normal tapping. I've got ghost notes if you want to apply it to that. Turning it upside down. Using different parts of the snare drum. See, I'm getting a pretty big sound. I'm not doing much work at all. I'm not bringing it up from up here, you know, like a Rob Hirst or anything like that. But that was a lot of show, you know, showmanship there. It's just wonderful though. He wasn't playing through the drum. There you go. Now what it is then you can start to do things that are so often done when you see them, but splitting rudiments, you see. Now, what I do with that, I'm going to go off to, it's mallet time. What's that? Jesse Ventura, Predator. It's payback time. The tobacco. Now, do you notice I'm playing the rock beat again? Now, boom, bam. What happens so often with rudiments, people will be going, single stroke roll. First lesson ever, trying to keep it nice and even. And then double stroke roll. I need a new set of mallets here. They've served me well. Paradiddle. And as soon as you go, ooh, all the sounds are putting you off, you see, but when you're getting it, basic paradiddle, reverse, get it, got it, good, there you go. Then when you're starting to do things like that, you start to have the vertical and the horizontal. There you go. Because what's happening, if you're always on a practice pad, I love my practice pads. I've got two. I've actually got the original Billy Gladstone suction practice pad over there. It's a wonderful thing. It was given to my mum when I was first starting out from one of her co-workers. With her son was playing drums, but then he stopped and said, well, you may as well have the practice pad. So I ended up with the Billy Gladstone ones. Fantastic. So I've got two, and I use it all the time. So there's certainly no dissing of a practice pad. However, one of the things is that when you are on a practice pad, one of the first things you really want to try and do is get everything even. So you've got your single stroke roll, double, paradiddle, and every now and again, I've got my little outside thing on sunny days, and every now and again I'll have a parent come, sounds like you were doing the same thing all lesson. Great, we won. And if they were looking, if the mum or dad was looking at us actually playing, the student and I, what it is we're going through all our single strokes, double strokes, paradiddles, inversions, all that. And if it comes out sounding like ta 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 on a practice pad, fantastic. However, the next step is to start to nuance it. Okay, start to nuance the rudiments, you see. So that's what I've done there. Like, so if I've got sorry about the slip at the end, but that's a reverse paradiddle, double paradiddle. At bass drum, maybe this one. Oh, where's my shillelagh? There you go. You'd hear that a lot with the bowron. Okay, love it. And if I go back to sticks for a second and do the same kind of thing, lovely little half-time shuffle. Not the Purdy shuffle, it's a double paradiddle half-time shuffle. Where it comes from. Crotchets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. What was that? There we go. You see, double paradiddle there. And then what goes on then, if you're splitting, you can start to play forever. I mean, what happens sometimes with the practice pad, diligently going through stick control, whatever you might have, all this sort of stuff, and then what happens then is you start to sort of get tunnel vision with just the practice pad. Don't get me wrong, I love my practice pad. However, if you start getting something like, put it this way, every Friday I start the show up, put everything on, turn everything up, play for about an hour or so. What am I going to do today? I know what I'm going to do sometimes. Other times it's like, oh, what am I going to do today? And then I'll put the triggers on, which you all have if you've got an electronic drum kit. You've got to experiment, like I said last episode, just see what this button does. And then all of a sudden, see? Now when I'm doing things like this, there's shades of taiko drumming, Pungmul drumming, which is the Korean. Dalsori is a wonderful group. Mixed sticking, splash hats there a little bit there to create a bit of air, if you like, and bringing in the on the trigger on the bass drum there for a bit of focus. Double paradiddle actually. Melody and counter melody. Do do do. And then layering the aforementioned. Get it?
Got it. Good.
There you go. All right. I better think about wrapping the show up. What the hell is this show about? Sounds, the science of the tap. And what goes on? Oh dear. I started with that. Science of the tap. Getting a beat backwards, upside down. Press rolls, doubles, singles, doubles, press. Bubble, bubble. Dynamics. See when I'm doing that? I don't call them ghost notes because it's a snare drum, but when I'm... They're ghost notes in that context. And they're the shades of the snare drum. Melody. pentatonic-y, as distinct from gin and tonic-y. Sorry. They're not all zingers. Oh, there it is. I'm going to love and leave you. There you go. My name is Chris Quinlan. I've done a couple of things tonight. Mainly things like the science of the tap, splitting rudiments, shades of a snare drum, and trying to be melodic with it all. Ah! There you go. All right, I'm off. Now, for a nice glass